Oh, look at this. Known miscreant Matthew Lloyd has a question, writing from prison undoubtedly. Um, let's see. Many people now have smart speakers, smart watches, smartphones, smart doorbells, smart everything. These devices are always listening, always watching, and always learning about us in order to give us exactly what we want, almost before we know we want it. It seems as if the future is finally here. Is the overwhelming convenience of modern, always connected technology worth the deal we make with the devil in giving away essentially unlimited information about ourselves? Is there any way for us to enjoy the high tech future many of us dreamed about without making this devil's bargain? Um, I shot a Bill Whittle Now today about an app that they're using in, I want to say it's Malaysia. I'm not 100% sure of that. I think it's Malaysia. And basically, it might be Indonesia. Anyway, it's an Asian country, Muslim country, and what this app does is it allows you to report Sharia violations so that the virtue police can come and administer the caning or the beheading or the cutting off of your hands or whatever else that barbarism calls for. And so the basic question was, what you're a law and order guy, you should be in favor of this. And Scott he really genuinely is a genius at this. Scott is an actual journalist. I've spent a lot of time defending Scott because people get on his case. I don't have to do that anymore. I'm just telling you, you really need to appreciate, if you don't already, how much of that show is Scott Ott and the brilliant way he phrases these questions in such a way as to make the conservative position essentially untenable, and then to be able to simply just knock those things down is great. So we were talking about this this idea, and I mentioned on that show that I bought the iPhone, I want to say 2011, somewhere in there. I think I got it on the iPhone 2S or something like that. But I bought it because of two apps. We were at a screening one night, and it was Sunday night, and we got out of the Fox lot at about 11, and a bunch of us said, we should go find some place to go get a bite to eat. Yeah, but there's no what's around on a Sunday night, And this guy pulled out this app with this thing called Around Me, and he basically just pulled this thing out and showed it to me. And it doesn't sound like much today, but honestly, at the time, it just knocked my socks off. Here are all the restaurants within within a 10-mile area, 20-mile area, and here's their hours, and you can touch any one of them, and you can call them to make sure they're open, and then you can touch this button and it'll give you directions to drive there. And I was actually. Bill is afraid to debate actual, not pretend lefties, says Martin Archer. I'm not sure that I'm afraid of debating anybody, actually, if you really want to know. If you know any, tee them up. Anyway, that was one app, and the other app that really sealed the deal for me, neither of which were tremendously serious apps, but the other one that really did it for me was Shazam. So I was in a restaurant, and I was in a Mexican restaurant in the afternoon, and it was very, very busy and loud, and there was something playing on the speakers, the tinny little restaurant speakers, and let's just say for the sake of it, it was the Girl from Ipanema, it was something like that. And my friend got out his iPhone, and he said, check this out, and he hit the button, pointed the speaker up, and you saw this little wheel go around. And then what happened is it found the song, and it showed me the location of it and so on, and I just thought, great. So basically, this app was able to distinguish this background music and select it and so on. And I said, look, the voice recognition now, you have all of these phones capable of recording everything you say, identifying your voice, identifying your face, and then basically reporting the situation. And I said to Scott, I believe in freedom and I believe in law and order, but I don't want to live in a censor society. I don't want to live in the middle of a surveillance society and be part of a censor network. And the relevant point of this was that it's something I explained to Natasha, because in Russia, certainly in Moscow, pretty much any traffic violation you make is recorded and you're just billed. cameras everywhere, and certainly if we wanted to enforce the speeding law, we could certainly set it up in such a way so that there were motion sensors, or use the GPS or whatever to automatically send a fine to any car that was exceeding the speed limit on the freeway. This is a very simple thing to do with the technology we have today. Just like the traffic cameras at intersections, except in constant motion, just put them everywhere. And then that way there would be no speeding violations, and everybody would do the speed limit because you would automatically get a ticket if you exceeded it. And this idea, when she was telling me about this in Moscow, was so repugnant to me. And I mean, I exceed the speed limit every single day. There's not a day when I don't exceed the speed limit, not one day. So I'm a violation of that particular law every day. And I think the point that's interesting here is that there's enough rebellion in America, in the American character, to need, I think, to be able to do this. So I was amazed when the Texas governor pulled existing traffic cameras out of intersections. Said, it's just not the Texas way. It's not really freedom, is it? I was just blown away by that. It was so impressive. So where does that leave you? It leaves me in a world where if I get a speeding ticket and I'm speeding, I deserve it. I don't argue. I don't say, gee, I didn't realize how fast I was going. I was like, yeah, I was going 72 in a 65 zone. So here you go. But I don't want to live in a surveillance society, and it comes down to ultimately, Matt, it comes down to the whole idea of a free society being composed of mostly virtuous people. In other words, I might do 62 in a 75. Well, since I've been married, I've been doing 62 and 75 zones, but because I have something to live for now, apparently. But what I mean by nibbling around the edges is I don't do 170 in a 65 zone. And my rationale for this is that 65 miles an hour in that particular stretch of road has been determined that this is the maximum speed that the worst driver and the worst car under the worst conditions can maintain. And I'm none of those things, so I give myself an extra 5. But if I'm caught, I don't argue. I broke the law. This is the consequences. I pay my speeding ticket, and off we go. And I haven't had one in many, many years. But anyway, so that's basically it. Now, before we close this goat rodeo out, I have to respond to something that's been kind of kicking around in the corner here.